feel like you just hate yourself. Unless you're fabulous, which, let's face it, you are. Either way, we all play video games.
Every single one of us.
Hoping to be something that we're not. Like a guy who can jump a second time whilst in the air. Well, if that's the case, this might not be the right list for you. These are playable characters, more specifically, forced playable characters, who the players just couldn't sit right with, bearing in mind that the odd few out there might have enjoyed it, and if so, please be nice to them. The list itself isn't meant to be me hating these characters alone, per se, but rather raising a few eyebrows when the popular opinion was that playing these characters was rather questionable amongst players themselves. Either way, to get through the game is something we have to live through, sadly. Or not, because despite the popular opinion, there are people out there who do in fact like these characters, and that's perfectly okay. This may or may not be the list for you. But tell me how much you like these characters, how much is missed. It makes us learn more in the process. I'll even throw in a nice bone in for these characters for added measure, to play devil's or angel's advocate based on whatever side you're on. So, something I haven't said in a while, let's count down. Don't think I've ever said it like that before. Top 10 characters people hated playing as. I'm not gonna lie, choosing the arguably most hated Final Fantasy character was difficult because there's many different reasons as to why they're intolerable. Cloud was called overrated a lot in the past, but there is some charm to him that still leaves him beloved amongst Final Fantasy fans. And his progression throughout the game is still quite a remarkable one, all the way towards that motivational speech right at the end of the game. Squall had a similar arc, and is also left divisive in the fanbase, a bit more than Cloud however. And I don't want to be the guy who points towards the laugh of Tidus either.
Oh dear.
I don't think that's necessarily his fault, more of the choice in the voice acting, which can in ways define the character, but it's not the verdict. A lot of these characters set off to recognise their internal struggles and set to overcome them. And in this day and age, yeah, I can see that being more understandable. Not just hating any character because they're too emotional or shallow. It's okay to not be okay and all that palaver. With all that said, I think push came to shove when Lightning came along. It doesn't really help that the majority of the Final Fantasy XIII roster was deemed intolerable by the fanbase. And certainly when this character, who wasn't deemed favourable to begin with, gets a sequel with her name in it, which I can imagine just screams, "Please like it! We have nothing else to live for until the next installment!" Although considering she was much more popular in Japan as the first Devil or Angel's advocate, it's easy to understand why they stuck with her. Plus, there are definitely those who consider her a role model in her decision towards the people she loved the most. So it's definitely up for debate. Or maybe this guy was right with not putting the game on Xbox.
To the PS3 fans, let's have our revenge. We will not buy this game.
But yeah, I can understand it's that confrontational nature between her and her party that makes her hard to sympathise with at times. And during a time where people were looking for something more refreshing from the series, this being force-fed a lot didn't really help the situation. Nowadays though, Final Fantasy 14, 15 and the 7 remake have made people glad that Square Enix have moved past it all.
No.
So Kojima is always the kind of creator who gives you what you least expect. Whether it's fourth wall methods to defeating a boss or very obscure puzzles which leave you scratching your head. But for Metal Gear Solid 2, he definitely liked throwing a curveball into it, in the form of slipping on bird shit. Raiden!
This is brilliant, but I like this.
Many people would argue that his placement in Metal Gear Solid 4 and Rising redeemed his character in so many different ways that it's much harder to dislike him in the second game now. But there is a loophole. There is a time machine I've been working on. I don't want to show it on camera because I don't want it to make it look like I'm not holding anything at all. So, see you soon. I meant to say see you before! Why am I still living here?
Hey! What are you doing in my flat?
Accident. Say, have you heard of the new Metal Gear Solid Rising game?
What is that? Some sort of new GBA game?
No, but it has Raiden in it.
What, that girly Barbie, man? No thanks.
Forgive him, he doesn't know what Twitter is yet. Back in the day though, Raiden was a huge twist for people who were so immersed with Snake's gameplay in the first game and wanted to play it as him all the way through. But they didn't really get that chance. And the issue there is, the reasons for hating the character become amplified. Because while Raiden did do incredible things like taking on 6 Rays by himself and also doing the Naked Mile solo, I mean it's fine when he does it, but when I do it, I get banned from Asda.
Oh babe, I told you TVs were gonna get smaller in the future.
Oi!
Yet another character that's very divisive among fans. And part of the reason Cole Phelps fits into that is both because of his character and the world he's in, which doesn't allow for a lot of character building for him. While you make many choices to solve the cases throughout the game, and Cole himself is portrayed as a goody two-shoes, not my words, the progression all comes to a halt when Cole is revealed to be cheating on his wife. Some might argue that this is a good thing because it added a flaw in his character, and then others will say it's something that just comes out of left field. If you had to ask my personal opinion, I think there is a little much left to be desired in this whole turning point. It just wasn't enough layers to add to him. It's like getting a seesaw and putting 4 children on one side and then just slamming a Jeep onto the other. And I partially blame LA Noir's pacing for this. Don't get me wrong, it's a good game with some good twists and turns which leave you finding more about the cases. I just think in instances where Cole is involved, it does feel fairly rushed. And not just that, but the ending which left for not much emotion to be delved into it. And I think now when you have multi-dimensional characters like Arthur Morgan to play as in other games, it doesn't feel like it's aged too well. I'm also someone who likes a bit of banter in their games, and Cole feels like a punching bag for a lot of it, and doesn't really redeem himself in the way you want him to, just adds to it. I still think Roy is the most detestable character in the game though. And then it oddly felt like a breath of fresh air to play as Jack Kelso. And that's where I was hoping for a game that was specifically about Kelso.
Safe! Coochie coochie.
I just opened up this can and... oh, why are there worms in here? So, yeah, that game. The one that became a meme for so long because of the anticipation leading towards it. The main thing people point towards with this isn't necessarily the humour, but more of the gameplay. But for the sake of this topic, we'll just focus on the humour. I looked at a montage for the funniest clips from the game, and I'm kinda left scratching my head. Like, oh, I'm a pervert. And I get that the game isn't meant to be taken seriously, but it doesn't mean I'm obliged to laugh either. As well as you're not obliged to laugh at my jokes.
Hey, guess what? I'm drinking piss.
Conker's Bad Fur Day makes me laugh. But this is just trying to revive something like aged milk. And it just gets to the point where the game is constantly trying to remind you of what it is. And it just gets so grating. And I feel like when it doesn't make some sort of sex joke, the jokes just fall very flat. And I think that's mainly due to the fact that the game thought it was in the times where voice acting was mainly cheesy and full of one-liners. We have plenty of depth now. Like whatever lunacy Borderland thinks up of next.
Quick!
Until Dawn, a game where the characters are meant to be flawed in their own way. But if there is any character that repeatedly gets under people's skin, then Emily gets the award for unprovoking shit nozzle of the year. Her demeanour is completely standoffish from the get-go, and directed towards those who don't really deserve it at first. Some people may believe that she is redeemed after her travels into the mines, and I think her intelligence overrules her first impressions, but then many others would say that's not enough to change it, as the game is focused on the characters and how they interact with each other, and she just does not sit well with that. So what you get from Cole Phelps is a bit less than what you get from Aiden Pierce. And part of this is to do with the way Watch Dogs was oversold at E3, to look like this revolutionary experience when, in reality, it wasn't. And to be honest, you may as well play as a walking skeleton in the game. Hell, that would be more fun. Not just that, but the motives within the game are twisted, to say the least. I mean, if I was responsible for my niece dying because I was hacking, I might have looked for a different hobby. I mean, I wouldn't get a slap on the wrist for running someone over now, would I? I'd get my car taken off me and sent to prison. But there's just absolutely nothing there. Just a hollow shell, which is why the trench coat exists, to hide it. And if you don't think it's possible to give a hacker some personality, rule of thumb for me is that if there is a chance to give more, that chance should be taken.
Goodbye, cruel world.
Bubsy. Oh god. See, I love my cat Chloe because, unlike Bubsy, when she opens her mouth, she doesn't talk. It's pretty interesting how Bubsy promotes hair loss because of how much you want to rip your hair out when you play as him. It's like when he dies, he's wondering why I'm giving him the middle finger. It's because you make me want to use bleach as cooking oil. The fourth wall in Bubsy's case is making sure the walls fall on top of him, which is a unique description of how the franchise ended.
3!
In a nutshell, if you make PewDiePie contemplate quitting the game, you've done something wrong. Now, The Last of Us Part 2 has definitely been one of the most controversial games in recent history, and it's not hard to see why. A beloved character such as Joel gets killed in such a brutal fashion, and instead of being a character Ellie simply has to hunt down, the game forces the player to play through her perspective. I got some scientists on speed dial who can ask me to put me in the body of Donald Trump. I don't think that's a good idea. In essence, the game puts you into two different worlds in a sort of twisted, empathetic adventure. And the game shows you how much of a vicious cycle revenge can be, which is the symbolism behind the final fight, which again, is a huge reason for people hating Abby, as people would have rather killed her than spared her. Which is understandable, but based on the reason I just gave for the symbolism of the game, it could very well be a good thing that that is the decision they made, the story to go down the path of. The other main reason is that scene. Yeah, I think the fence is low enough for me to sit on with this one. I'll let you discuss it. Go mad, down below. I mean, in the comments, now. God, why is this list like worms so much? I throw with such elegance. But here is a note to any developer. Don't.
But you can call me Dante the Demon Killer. Has a nice ring to it, don't you think?
Must do if you say in that tone of voice. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, alright? Am I building rapport yet? I think I went in with the more in-depth look at this character, where the fundamental part is that, yeah, it is different to what the fans know about Dante already. The white hair and the laid-back approach to everything that comes in his way. But when we go back in, it does seem like Ninja Theory did a lot of things to actively slag off the original.
Not in a million years.
Wonderful! Best way to win them over is to antagonize them. It's not like you can just accept that people are skeptical to change and, you know, just ease them in. As for the look, it's not the worst, unless you count the teaser, which still thinks the Sex Pistols rock and roll life would work in this day and age. Then this Dante just tries too hard to be cool at the expense of other people. The one-liners, they don't really hit the mark as much. And what made the original Dante awesome was that he didn't try very hard to say things. They just came out in a way that felt natural to him. I mean, 3 and onwards. Yeah, this one just feels very forced. And sadly, when he does have a revelation at the end of the game, it's too late. It's like Ross in Friends in a way. What happened was great and all, but all the annoyances that happened previously don't really go down well already. Especially if you know you weren't on a break. It just lets you pass that painful self-reflection stage if you admit it. Overall though, the writers just want to leave a sour taste on a franchise rather than honour it. It's okay to go in a different direction, but if you just spend most of your time slagging off the past, who's to say you have matured at all? To be fair to Big the Cat, he's a bit of a dumbass. But this isn't about Big, is it? No, that would be too easy. Instead, I'm gonna go with an undisputed choice with the whole cast of Sonic 06. Because how tolerable are the characters as a whole in any given way? Whether it is the gameplay or the shoddy writing. Sonic arguably has the best gameplay, which still feels underwhelming to me and has one-liners that
That tornado's carrying a car!
don't like you. This was also the initial performance in the games from Jason Griffith and just came off as hit and miss at times. So much so that it made the ranting community at the time lose their mind.
Not Griffith!
Oops. And while the dialogue and voice acting doesn't hit the mark, that's not all from it. The glitches don't help the situation at all. The choices in level and boss design for a large amount of characters, it just doesn't make for a satisfying experience at all. I could forgive the voice acting in the adventure games because the charm is still there, but as it's been said many times before, 06 was an unfinished mess, and it shows. Even some storyline moments sadly were finished. Like before release day they said, let's keep this in, I'm proud of this. I'm guessing the light just censors the tongue action from the kids, which is fair enough. Is it? Don't answer that. Although that won't save the critique. I know this should be more about the characters themselves, and it is, as the game doesn't do the characters much justice. Shadow especially is given more of a broody voice, which just feels forced whenever he utters any lines.
Initiating the mission now.
I guess I only like Blaze and Omega, who is a robot. I can't be mad at a robot unless it has some kind of arsehole design. Actually, just after writing this, Eggman isn't so bad in the game either. Robotnik, sorry. And this was before the games decided to take on the more comedic-based Robotnik, where they had him appear as more of an evil overlord kind of figure. And that's okay, you know, that's worked before and it works in his favour now. So there you have it, characters who people hated playing as, whether it was for their gameplay or for their personality. Thank you for staying till the end. If you wish to support the channel further, then you can go ahead and subscribe for more content, as well as check out my social media, which the links are in the description for. There's also a link in the description to get 10% off gaming merch using my code KEYMERCH. So go mad! Thank you, lights out.